Welcome to NFL Nexus. You know, we all love watching a dynasty. The trophies, the parades, that feeling of just complete dominance. But in the NFL, there's always a bill that comes due. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the Kansas City Chiefs and the absolutely brutal financial hangover that comes right after a championship run. And look, this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about the cold, hard reality of how dynasties are literally forced to tear themselves apart just to survive. We're going to get into the high-stakes chess match the Chiefs' front office is playing, where every single move could be the difference between another Super Bowl and a decade of just being average.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to start at the epicenter of it all, the superstars price tag that completely changed the team's financial future. Then, we'll dive into the weeds of the cap conundrum. You know, that unforgiving league rule that's putting a major squeeze on the champs. Next up, we'll watch the first domino fall and really look at the human cost of these money decisions. After that, we're going to gaze into the crystal ball at more hard choices ahead, because believe me, this is far from over. And finally, we'll break down their only real way out of this mess, reloading through the draft, that desperate hunt for affordable elite talent. Let's get right into it.
All right, Section 1. So, to really understand the puzzle the Chiefs are trying to solve right now, you have to start with the single biggest piece on the board. Everything, and I mean everything, revolves around the contract of their generational quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. He's the reason for the championships, the sellout crowds, all those primetime TV games. But of course, that kind of talent comes at a price, and as we're about to see, his contract is the one thing that defines every other decision this team has to make.
And there it is. That's the number that changed everything. $450 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the total value of Mahomes' 10-year contract extension. When he signed it, it was the richest deal in sports history. Now, the idea was pretty simple. Lock up the best player in the entire league for a decade and just build around him. And for a while, it worked perfectly. But a contract this big isn't just a line on a budget. It's a force of nature. It acts like this financial black hole, just pulling every other dollar on the roster right towards it. Every other player's contract, every free agent they think about signing, every tough cut. It all starts right here with this one number.
So you've got that massive anchor of a contract for Mahomes, right? Then you add on other huge deals for stars like Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, and all of a sudden you have a perfect storm. The Chiefs came into this offseason facing what ESPN called one of the most restrictive salary cap situations in the entire league. We're not talking about needing to be a little more careful with their spending. No, this was a full-blown, code-red financial crisis. They were so far over the spending limit that they literally could not field a legal team without making some immediate drastic moves. So how'd they start to fix it? Well, it took some incredibly creative and incredibly risky financial gymnastics, starting with Mahomes' own deal.
So check this out. This slide shows those financial gymnastics perfectly. On the left, that's the nightmare scenario. Mahomes' original cap hit for 2026 was a jaw-dropping $78.2 million. Just think about that. One player eating up that much of your budget would make it basically impossible to build a competitive team around him. So the Chiefs did something that's very common, but also really risky. They did a restructure. Think of it like this. Instead of paying him over $54 million as a salary for the year, they just relabeled it a signing bonus. The magic of NFL accounting is that bonus money can be spread out over the life of the contract. So they took that massive payment, chopped it out, kicked the pieces down the road, and boom, his 2026 cap number instantly dropped to a much more manageable $34.65 million.
And just like that one little accounting trick created a staggering $43.65 million in immediate breathing room. That move was the financial equivalent of a defibrillator. It shocked them back to life. Without it, they couldn't sign their new draft picks. They couldn't even think about pursuing free agents. They were completely paralyzed. This move bought them the oxygen they needed to function. But, and you have to understand this part, this is not free money. They didn't save a dime. They just took out a massive credit card loan against their future salary caps, and they're just hoping the bill doesn't come due at the worst possible time.
And right here, this is the bill I was just talking about. The slide calls it the cost of restructuring, and it's not an exaggeration to say they've basically created a monster. That money they pushed into the future, it added an extra $11 million in cap charges to the later years of his deal. And now just look at that projected cap hit for 2027. It balloons to an almost unbelievable $85 million for one guy. They basically took out a high-interest loan to fix today's problem, knowing full well that it makes tomorrow's problem exponentially harder to solve. This is the definition of kicking the can down the road, and folks, that road is leading straight to a cliff.
So that brings us to Section 2.
Now that we understand the desperate moves the Chiefs had to make, let's talk about why they had to do it. To really get it, you have to understand the main villain of this entire story, the NFL salary cap. For most teams, it's a tool that keeps the playing field level. But for a dynasty like the Chiefs, it's a relentless, unyielding force that is specifically designed to break them up. It's the hard ceiling they're constantly and painfully smashing their heads against.
So what exactly is the salary cap? The slide gives you the textbook definition, but let's make it even simpler. Imagine you and 31 of your buddies all decide to build fantasy football teams, but there's one rule. Everybody gets exactly, say, $255 million to spend on their whole roster. That's it. You can give one player $60 million if you really want to, but that means you got to find bargains everywhere else. That's the NFL salary cap. It's a hard, non-negotiable budget every single team has to follow. It's the league's ultimate tool for parity, designed to stop a team from just buying championships. And for a team like the Chiefs that's just loaded with stars, this tool of balance has become a financial straitjacket.
This number, right here, this is why the Chiefs GM, Brett Veach, probably wasn't sleeping much this offseason. Before they made a single move, before the Mahomes restructure, ESPN reported the team was a projected $57 million over the salary cap. Let me put that in perspective for you. That's more than the entire 2024 salary cap hit of superstars like Lamar Jackson or Nick Bosa. They were in the red by an amount that could pay for one of the best players in the entire world. This wasn't just a budget shortfall. It was a financial catastrophe that made them non-compliant with league rules and absolutely forced their hand.
Which brings us right to our third section, the first domino falls. See, when you're that far in the red, even after a massive contract restructure, you have to find more money. And there are only so many accounting tricks you can pull. Eventually, you have to make the hardest calls of all. You have to look at the players in your own locker room, guys who helped you win championships, and you have to cut them. The salary cap isn't just about numbers. It has a very, very real human cost. And the first domino to fall was a direct result of that pressure.
And that first domino was defensive end Mike Donna. Now, this wasn't some fringe player at the end of the roster. Donna was a key rotational piece on their defensive line, a guy the team drafted back in 2020. He was homegrown talent, a dude with 2 Super Bowl rings. But he found himself in the most dangerous position you can be in a capped league. He was a good, solid player with a pretty expensive contract. His production was valuable for sure, but it wasn't elite. And when a front office is staring down a $57 million hole, good just isn't good enough to justify the price tag.
And this slide right here breaks down the brutal math of that decision. Donna was scheduled to cost the team $11.1 million against their budget in 2026. For a rotational player, that's a huge number. By cutting him, they instantly cleared $8.9 million in space. But look at that last line, dead money. This is a concept that can be a little confusing. Just think of it this way. When Donna signed his contract, part of it was a bonus that was being spread out over a few years. So even though he's not on the team anymore, the bill for that bonus still exists. So the Chiefs still have to account for over $2 million on their budget for a player who now plays for somebody else. It is a bitter pill to swallow, but they were so desperate for the immediate savings that they had to take the hit.
This quote from a team official reported by Sports Illustrated, it just says it all. It was a difficult move, but the numbers are what they are. You could just feel the conflict in that statement. On one hand, this is a player who was a real part of their success. He had over 21 sacks, he was a key piece on 2 Super Bowl winning defenses. But then you look at the other side of the coin. His production dipped a little last year and his contract was expensive. In the end, that emotional connection to the player, it just couldn't compete with the cold, hard logic of the salary cap. The numbers won. So that brings us to Section 4. After all that financial maneuvering, the huge restructure, cutting a key veteran, the Chiefs have finally clawed their way back. They went from being $57 million in the hole to just about breaking even. They're cap compliant now. But here's the problem. Compliant doesn't win you championships. All they've done is get back to the starting line. They have no money to sign free agents, no flexibility for in-season injuries, no room to improve a roster that just went 6-11. They are just treading water. And in the NFL, if you're treading water, you are sinking. This means the purge is not over, not by a long shot. More hard choices are on the horizon. So who's next on the chopping block? Well, the front office is looking at their roster like a game of Jenga right now, trying to figure out which expensive block they can pull without the whole thing collapsing. According to reports from Yahoo Sports, 2 names just jump right to the top of the list. The first is right tackle Juwan Taylor. He's got a massive contract, and releasing him would create a clean $20 million in cap space. The other is a player they absolutely do not want to lose, all-pro defensive tackle Chris Jones. He's the heart and soul of their defense, but his contract is huge. In restructuring it, Kicking that can down the road just like they did with Mahomes could free up another $20 to $22.5 million in cash they desperately need right now.
And this is where the reality of the situation gets truly uncomfortable. The financial squeeze is so intense that it forces a team to consider the unthinkable. We're talking about having conversations about a franchise icon, a living legend, a future first-ballot Hall of Famer, Travis Kelce. Now, let me be clear, it's highly unlikely they would ever just cut him. But the fact that his age and his large contract even enter the conversation, that just shows you how dire things are. It perfectly captures that brutal tug-of-war that every great team eventually faces, the loyalty you feel to the players who built your dynasty versus the ruthless, unsentimental need for financial flexibility to try and win the next one.
This quote from a CBS sports analyst really puts a bow on it. This is the trade-off of chasing multiple Super Bowls in a capped league. And that is the core truth of this entire story. This isn't a Chiefs problem. It's a dynasty problem. We saw it with the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Cowboys. The bill for success always comes due. The cost of those championship parades and hoisting those Lombardi trophies is a future where you are forced to make these heartbreaking roster-altering decisions. You simply cannot afford to pay a quarterback $500 million and keep every other veteran hero. This is just the price of greatness in the modern NFL.
Which brings us to our final section, the only way out. So if you're the Chiefs and your checkbook is empty and you're being forced to part ways with proven, expensive veterans, what's the plan? How do you possibly stay competitive? The answer is the oldest and most effective strategy in the book for a team in this position. You have to absolutely master the NFL draft. The entire strategy shifts from buying talent to finding it. You have to replace the stars you can't afford anymore with cheap, young, hungry players on those rookie contracts.
And here's the one tiny, ironic silver lining to the Chiefs' disastrous 6-11 season last year. For the first time since before Patrick Mahomes was even the full-time starter, the Chiefs have a premium draft pick. They are selecting 9th overall. After years and years of picking at the very end of the first round, this is a golden ticket. It's an invaluable chance to draft a truly elite blue-chip prospect who can become a cornerstone for the next 4 or 5 years, all while being paid on a cheap, fixed rookie salary. This pick is absolutely critical to their whole reloading strategy. So let's look at a couple of players who could be a perfect fit.
So how do you replace a guy like Chris Jones if you eventually can't afford him? Well, you try to draft the next Chris Jones before he gets paid like one. Meet Caleb Banks, a defensive tackle from Florida. What's so fascinating here is that Banks himself at the scouting combine said he models his game after the Chiefs star. And when you look at the slide, the comparison is almost spooky. Same height, same position, they even rock the same jersey number. The dream for the Chiefs is that Banks could step right in and provide that same game-wrecking interior pressure, but for a tiny fraction of the cost. And the best part? Chris Jones himself saw the comparison on social media and gave the prospect a supportive shout-out, which you know has to have the Chiefs front office excited.
Another name to keep an eye on is safety Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. You know, sometimes in a rebuild, you just need to inject raw, elite athleticism back into your roster, and this guy is a walking explosion. His NFL Combine performance was just off the charts. Look at these numbers. A 4.35 40-yard dash means he has the pure speed to cover anybody. A 41-inch vertical means he can go up and get any pass. This isn't just a good athlete, this is a 1% level athlete. And for a defense that's getting older and more expensive, getting a player with this kind of dynamic, playmaking ability on a rookie deal would be a massive, massive win.
So when you put it all together, you realize what's happening in Kansas City isn't unique. And it's not chaos. It's a cycle. A predictable, painful, and necessary cycle that every great team eventually goes through. Just look at the blueprint on the slide. Step 1, pay the QB, lock up your superstar. Step 2, face the cap. That huge contract inevitably squeezes your budget. Step 3, cut veterans. You're forced to say goodbye to expensive, beloved players. And Step 4, draft talent. You have to hit on your draft picks to find cheap replacements. This is the blueprint for survival in the modern NFL. The Chiefs are just on Step 3, and they are praying they can succeed at Step 4.
And so that leaves us with the ultimate question hanging over the Kansas City Chiefs. Can a team successfully trade today's champions for tomorrow's trophies? It is a high-wire act with absolutely no safety net. They are making a massive bet. A bet that Patrick Mahomes' talent is so great and their front office is so smart that they can survive losing the very players who helped them reach the top. It's one of the most fascinating team-building gambles in the league, and we'll all be watching to see if it pays off. So what did you think of our breakdown? Do you think the Chiefs are making the right moves?
Let us know down in the comments. We read every single one. If you enjoyed this explainer and want more deep dives into the nuts and bolts of the NFL, please hit that like button and subscribe to NFL Nexus. It really helps the channel out. And one more thing, if you're looking for a great gift for the football fan in your life, young or old, we've created some fun coloring books that you can check out via the QR code on screen or the link in the description. Thanks so much for watching.